So this is interesting. The LeBron-Michael Jordan debate, you can criticize LeBron and it's okay. But, boy, if you criticize Michael Jordan, whoa. So it just makes headlines. And they're the two best basketball players I've ever seen. That doesn't mean they're the best at everything, but they're the two best basketball players I've ever seen. Magic Johnson's third. Magic just isn't as good in his prime as a defender as Michael Jordan, who was great, or LeBron, who was great. We even saw LeBron in this finals be a great defender. So Magic was never as good on the defensive end, which is only about 20 or 30% of basketball. It's mostly NBA's. Nobody stopped Kobe. Nobody stopped Michael. Nobody stops LeBron. There's no such thing as a Michael stopper, LeBron stopper, a Kobe stopper, a Kareem stopper. By the way, Bill Russell didn't stop Wilt Chamberlain either. I mean, he was the best defensive player. It's an offensive league. That's 70, 75, or 80% of the game. But if you criticize Michael, watch out. And so Club Shay Shay, it's very popular. Shannon Sharpe's got a club. Tuxedos are required. Club Shay Shay had Isiah Thomas on talking about the best players he ever faced when he played.
Who would you say are the 5 toughest players that you've had to face?
Again, and you can just go by the winning records, right?
Right.
Magic, Kareem.
Okay.
Bird, Dr. J, and then I would say Jordan.
Oh, Michael's not number one. Let me defend Isiah Thomas on this. Now, there's a reason at a boxing match you'll have 3 judges, and as Joy knows, they sit on different sides of the ring because you can see things differently from your view. If you're on this side of the ring, you may see a lot of the fighters up close. The other side of the ring, you see a different fight. We've all watched fights, and 1 or 2 of the judges have a scorecard, and you're like, what fight did he watch? But we're watching on television with replays. He's down low. He could be on the wrong side of the ring and not have the same view of the fight. That's why they have 3 judges, and they don't just have 1 because fighters move around. They move toward their corners. And so from Isiah Thomas's eyes, what is Michael Jordan? Well, let's just ask ourselves about basketball qualities that we admire. Broadly, is Michael Jordan the greatest winner of all time? Oh, no, he's not. Bill Russell won 11 titles. Michael won 6. Okay, he's the best scorer of all time. Oh, no. That's Kareem, who was not only the best scorer, but had the greatest single shot, the skyhook. Okay, well, Michael does more things well than everybody. No. Even LeBron critics would acknowledge he's a better ball handler. He's a better rebounder. He's a better passer than Michael. LeBron does more things well. Well, then Michael elevates people more than anybody. Oh, God, no. Magic Johnson, everybody was great with Magic. That's why Magic went to 30% more finals than Michael Jordan. Well, he's the ultimate Iron Man. He's like Cal Ripken. He never missed he quit twice. He was a great basketball player, perhaps the greatest ever. But in Isiah Thomas's eyes, when Isiah Thomas faced Michael Jordan in his prime with his Pistons, Michael couldn't beat him. By the way, couldn't beat the Celtics either. And I've always said there's 2 facts about Michael. It's almost sacrilegious to bring these up, but they're both facts. When James Worthy and Michael were teammates at North Carolina, they won a championship. When James Worthy left for the pros, Michael stuck around. The following year, Michael's college basketball team with Dean Smith, it wasn't the best in state. North Carolina State won the title. He didn't even have the best college basketball team in state, Michael. And then he went to the NBA, and do you know how many playoff series he won without Pippen? For our radio audience, the answer is a bagel. Those are facts. Michael won a title when he had Dean Smith and Phil. He didn't win with a lot of coaches. He didn't win with a lot of players. When he had a Hall of Fame number 2 and a Hall of Fame coach, he won. The following year, he went 8 years without winning. Had a bunch of good players. Had a bunch of quality coaches who won games. These are facts. And the fact is, Michael's not the greatest scorer ever. He didn't have the best shot ever. When he left, the Bulls were still very good. 57 wins to 55. When LeBron leaves teams, they disintegrate. But one thing that Jordan had, and to a higher level than anybody of my life, Michael was not only great, he was the best looking, he was the most glamorous, and he had the greatest shoe campaign, which still resonates today. We moved off Joe Montana. Remember, Joe Montana was 4 Super Bowls. He was 4 for 4. Jordan's 6 for 6. That's always the argument. But we moved off Joe Montana in a heartbeat when Brady won his 5th. In a heartbeat. Why? Because Joe Montana, like Jordan, was good-looking and glamorous. They're both good-looking dudes. They're both glamorous guys. But Montana didn't have the Nike bulletproof shield, which deflects, that likability. I always said that about Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan was the most liked president ever. Wasn't the best necessarily, but he was so charming and likable, even his rivals liked him. His rivals wouldn't take shots at him. Any criticism, he once joked about bombing Russia. We all were like, oh, it's just Reagan. He's so funny. Nobody else could get along. JFK couldn't have done that. Clinton couldn't have done that. Bushes couldn't have done that. Is that we moved off Joe Montana in a heartbeat. 4 for 4, perfect in the Super Bowl, 3 MVPs. The minute Brady got his 5th, even though Brady lost a couple, because Montana didn't have the shield protecting him. I think Michael and LeBron are the 2 best basketball players ever. Argue what you want. But I can go 5 and 6 and 7 categories. He's not the greatest scorer. He's not the greatest winner. He didn't elevate teammates like Magic. He's not an Iron Man like LeBron. He didn't do more things well than everybody. He's just a great basketball player that when he got a Robin and when he got Phil Jackson, he was hard to beat. But I'll argue this. He never beat a great dynasty in the finals. He beat the Pistons and the Celtics when they got old and the Lakers in the West when they got old. You can say that. It's okay. In Isaiah's worldview, when he was in his prime and the Pistons were in their prime, Michael was just a super athletic guy that scored a bunch of points but didn't make anybody around him better. That's what he was. That's what he saw. Bring in Nick Wright, my buddy, host First Things First. So you love basketball like I did, and I said, you can view something differently because you see it from a different angle. And where everybody that's 20 years old sees Michael Jordan on YouTube and didn't see any of his losses or missed shots, he's the greatest player ever. We have to live with LeBron's bad games, the one he has a year. And in Isiah Thomas's eyes, when he says MJ is the 5th best player I ever faced, well, when he was in his prime with the Pistons and they were in their prime, Michael just shot a bunch, didn't elevate others, and could never beat them. Yeah. So I defend Isiah. That's that correct. In your eyes, no, Kareem was unstoppable. There was nobody like Kareem in his prime. So your takeaway, I kind of defended Isiah today with his thoughts.
Yeah, well, listen, Jordan and those Bulls, as you mentioned, couldn't beat Isaiah's Pistons. They finally beat them once the Pistons had aged out of contention after the Pistons had owned them for the 80s. And so, of course, Isiah Thomas, what do all those players have in common that he mentioned? Those were the greatest players of the 1980s.
Yeah.
Jordan was not one of those guys. Jordan was the greatest player of the 90s. And so, of course, I defend Isiah. I'm also glad Isiah included Dr. J. Dr. J, who I think's the 15th greatest player of all time, but nobody counts what he did in the ABA when he won 3 MVPs and championships in the ABA, so people forget about how great he was before he even got to the Sixers in the NBA. But whenever, here's what I would say to the audience that is saying, Nick and Colin, you're both just in the tank for LeBron. The next time one of these types of shows is running a Jordan highlight reel, count on your fingers how many of the highlights come against the Pistons. Because there ain't none. It's him getting clotheslined, and then and the highlights, it's like, wow. Ask Byron Russell who the toughest player he played against is. I bet he says Jordan. Ask Cliff Robinson or Clyde Drexler. I bet they'll say Jordan. But the Pistons and the Celtics of the 80s had no problem dispatching of Michael Jordan.